think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
Oh, here we are again.
Myer Realty's Commercial Corner.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you.
I'm just here to help.
I have a hard time with that name. I don't know what it is. I can't get it. We're going to have to put it up on a big chalkboard again for us.
Well, your name is part of the name, so you would think you'd have that by now.
That part I have. That's the part I have. The rest of it I don't have. So here we are again, and this week for our first week, we are filming this for our YouTube channel, and we are going to archive this. If you go to MyerRealty.com, you will see a link to our YouTube channel. We're going to archive all these shows. We would appreciate if you would subscribe to the channel. That would be very helpful to all of us, and you can go back and see any previous ones, and of course keep caught up on the ones we do. So let me give you the call-in numbers first. The call-in numbers are, thank you. The call-in numbers are 844-790-8255, and if you'd like to text in, 775-237-2266. And we have Kelly behind the camera helping us out today. We want to thank her for that. So we have, so far I think, is this our fourth week? Bob?
Fourth or fifth? I'm starting to lose count.
Fifth week.
Oh, by the way, let me do a little introduction here. Bob Lunsford, our local CCIM expert, and he's in our office. We're very proud to have Bob with us. My
Hello.
brother, thank you, Bob. My brother Scott and myself, Fred.
Hello.
Fred Scott. Get that right. Okay, so we've worked on cap rates. We've worked on self-directed IRAs on 1 week.
Yes.
We've covered the benefits of seller financing and rookie mistakes. And this is a commercial real estate show. And not that we don't once in a while slip off into residential, but really we try not to. We're really focused on commercial. That is our bailiwick, and that's where a lot of our talents lie. So to start it off here today, we're talking about due diligence and sort of the
Well, it's part of rookie mistakes. Actually, it
is.
follows right in with rookie mistakes and the due diligence, right, Fred?
They can certainly happen there. Yes, that's right, Scott. So we want to touch on sort of when to do those things and what order should they maybe fall. So, Scott, why don't you start off and...
Well, I'm basically going to bring us in, and Bob's going to comment on some of this stuff, but due diligence involves a lot of different things. The problem with due diligence a lot of times is people, they get excited about the property they've got in contract, and they can tend to cut corners. Maybe just want to get it closed. They're excited. They're emotional.
It's a painful part of the process.
Yeah, and it can be a little mundane and painful. Unless you're really into the numbers, it can be kind of exciting too. Like we're kind of into the numbers, and we enjoy that stuff, and that's what we help you with. Isn't that right, Fred?
That's right.
Just checking. Okay. Anyway, so regarding sort of an outline of what we're going to talk about today is the goal is, you want accuracy, because it's all about accuracy in the numbers. And the seller, they kind of like to twist the numbers a little bit in their favor. And it's kind of our job to untwist those numbers. We want to make sure we have the real numbers. So we have accuracy is one of the things we're going to talk about. Getting the real numbers, because that is critical, because then in the end, you're not going to have the real answers to your numbers if you don't have the real numbers.
Okay, stop there. Bob, how do we get the real numbers?
Well, the real numbers, one characteristic of any income property is you might be out there shopping and you come across a income expense statement, and in many cases a seller is going to project the best possible picture, and so they may be giving you what's called a pro forma, which is a projection, not based on real actual numbers.
And properties that are listed should really technically be listed on the real numbers. A pro forma should be stated as such, really.
And a pro forma is going to be what this seller thinks his property how it will perform. Usually the seller and his agent are going to put that together.
Could perform.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that you really want to look for. But then you want to really look in an income property. You want to look at those backup documents. You want to look at things in the case of a multifamily property. You want to look at the actual leases. You want to look at rent rolls. You want to look at the tenant files. So you really want to dig into this to the extent that those documents exist. And certainly in some cases, smaller multifamily property, you don't have that level of backup documentation. But that's really what you want to strive for.
Yes, and then another, the final maybe backup of all those numbers would be an estoppel, right? Where you estoppel the tenant, or you estoppel the tenants, plural, and you basically you go directly to the tenant to find out if, in fact, what is you've seen on the leases is, in fact, what they concur.
Good point.
And you want to make sure that those things line up, right? Right, Scott?
Very true. Yeah. Very true. Exactly.
So what do we? And what's next? What's the?
Just to kind of preface what Scott said. There's really, there's many different permutations and variations of any type of income property, and you really want to understand what you're looking at. But you really want to start in terms of due diligence, think about it in terms of going from the general to the specific. Your first level of due diligence might be market. And a market assessment. You're looking at the demographics, the socio-income numbers, whatever, to support the use or the projection.
Traffic counts, maybe, and freeway access, maybe, or something like that, right? Whatever.
Any number of things that you might want to look at in that market. But then you also want to look at the property in terms of what's the physical condition of the property. So you want to have your proper inspections, physical pest. In the case of other more sophisticated or larger commercial buildings, you might want to have other types of structural assessment, roof assessments, whatever the case may be, but you really want to focus on the physical aspects of that property. And then the other part of it is all the documentation to support that income, and that's what we'll get into here.
Yeah. So, so income, is that what you just mentioned, Bob?
Well, the income would apply in terms of the accuracy, getting the real numbers, verifying the income, those sorts of things.
Right. So, getting the real numbers is critically important. A dead giveaway to pro forma numbers is found, the top line of the income statement, gross potential income, followed by subtraction from potential income, tells us the numbers that are given are not actual performance.
And the potential that's the key word right there, because it's not actual.
You don't want to see
potential.
that word. You don't want to see that word in there, really.
Right.
We'll figure out the potential.
Well,
it's the buying agent for our client.
I'll just comment on that word. Using potential income for valuation means we would be paying the seller for income that we produce. Think about that one. Makes sense.
Whoa, let's dwell on that for a minute. We don't like that. We don't like that.
No, we don't. We don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So that's a key point is understanding when you do get that income expense statement on any income property, are you looking at a pro forma or are you looking at an actual?
Right. Okay, so at that point, actually right now, because we're going to be coming up on a break in a minute, I'd like Fred to mention the property he has today that he wants to talk about that for lease. Mm-hmm. It's a property that our office is in this property. And Fred, why don't you tell them what we have there as far as for lease?
Yes, sir. So what we have is it's located at 1155 West 4th Street. There is retail downstairs. We've got about 30,000 feet of retail downstairs and about 27,000 feet of office, medical/office upstairs. We have downstairs right now spaces as small as about 1,000 feet, maybe 900 feet, retail frontage, glass front, signage, facing 4th Street, 11,000 cars a day on 4th Street. And then upstairs we've got a dental, it's not built, it's built out, the operatories are gone, but it's built out, and so it's ready for the operatories to be,
so it's kind of plumbed, it's plumbed for dental?
Yeah, absolutely plumbed, all the water's there, yeah, it's 1,700 square feet. Okay. Any of you dentists out there looking for a place to pull some teeth, I've got it. So,
ouch.
Yeah, and so we're looking at about upstairs is about $1.25 a foot, and that's it start rate inclusive of cams. Downstairs is $1.13 all in. That's everything included, which is a great rate. I don't think you can find, or I don't think you can beat that rate for sure, and you may not even be able to find that rate anywhere. And it's just good, nice stuff. Built in '86. We're doing some work on it. New carpet's going in upstairs. But we're going to go to break here real quick. Let me give you the number if you want to call in, 844-790-8255. Do I hear that song? Ooh,
Myer Realty's Commercial Corner.
play that groove for me.
We'll be right back to talk about due diligence.
Hi, this is Eddie Flores. I want to tell
Where can I buy that CD? I'm really digging that tune.
Yeah.
I want to know where I can get that darn thing.
iTunes.
iTunes, all right. The Whitney Myer Band. Yeah.
Whitney Myer, actually, she just played here just for the brouhaha. Actually, I played with her there. It was quite successful. There was a lot of beer there.
Yeah, I was there, and I drank some of that.
Did you really?
Yes.
I didn't. I don't like beer.
It was good. It was a good event.
Yeah, it was.
So we're back. Call in 844-790-8255. Call us up with your questions. Try and stump us. We dare you.
So we're back here. We're talking about due diligence. This is Scott here, and I'm sort of directing this to Bob. And we're going to get into the accuracy part of due diligence, which we talked about a little bit. But the net operating income is the most critical number for the accurate evaluation. Is that correct, Bob?
That's correct, because that determines the income capitalization, ultimately the value of the property, looking on an income basis.
Right. And we want to make sure that NOI is are true numbers. We want to prove up those numbers and make sure that, actually, we probably want to get their tax return, right? Because what they report to the IRS, well,
Good point.
Yeah.
Verifying that tax return, that schedule versus what is actually provided in terms of an actual income.
Hold 1 second,
statement.
folks.
What?
We have our first call.
Uh-oh.
It's Teresa, and she's calling in. I think she's got a question for Bob or Scott. Bob or Scott.
Yeah.
Bob or Scott.
Okay.
For Bob or Scott. Teresa, are you there?
I am. Hi.
Hey, hi. Welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing good. Trying to stay warm.
Yeah, it's chilly out there. What did you have for us today? You got a question regarding some real estate?
I'm just wondering, I have a property, 4 units in town, a rental property, and I'm wondering I was thinking of marketing it and how to come up with a value for that property.
Value. Bob, you wanna take that?
Well, absolutely. I think the first thing you have to start with is producing what's called an APOD, or an annual property operating data, and come up with your income and your expense statements. What is the gross income less the vacancy losses versus the effective rental income, and then deduct from that all your expenses to operate that property. And it's best to hold that, to provide that on an annual basis, so you're going back 12 months.
So let me. Where's the property at, Victoria? What part of town? Or Teresa? Oh, it's Teresa. I'm sorry.
It's in Midtown, actually.
Midtown. Bob, what kind of cap rates are we looking at in Midtown for the young lady?
The cap rates right now are pretty low,
Especially in Midtown.
and which means is a good thing for you, Teresa, because it means that your property is worth more, because the cap rates are generally between 5.5% and 6.5%, even in the Midtown area. So that means the values are higher right now, because it's a high demand area. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, you got a hot property to sell there.
So if I understand how to do the income expense from that point, if I annualize that, then how do I take that net operating income number and convert that to a cap rate?
Well,
NOI divided by price. Or excuse me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's
take
yeah.
that net operating income divided by the price, and that comes up with your cap rate.
And that'll give you your cap rate, and
Okay.
somewhere between 5 and 6. You know, one of the things you want to consider also, Teresa, is the condition of the property. So you got to, that sort of plays a bit of a role in coming up with a value. But thank you very much for the call. We
All right,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Yeah, good luck with that. Give us a call.
Thanks.
By the way, give us a call at the 745-2918. We can help you with that.
Great, thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, so getting back to, we were talking about accuracy in the numbers and getting the real numbers, and Bob was discussing that and how we need to really drill down and make sure we've got accurate numbers so that we come out with an accurate value of the property. And just like the last caller, for instance, don't forget, if you're on the sales side, it's easy to sort of want to, like, maybe not put in a vacancy, or, if you're only hurting yourself, you do that because a good agent and / buyer on the other end is going to want, if you don't put it in, they're going to plug it in.
Well, and even that, you're right about that, Scott. And more so, what you'll find is they don't put in management because they figure, well, I manage it, so I don't pay for management. Well, guess what? That means you're not paying yourself, and then you're asking the guy who's buying it not to pay himself to do that job. And if you put the property out to property management, you're going to be paying anywhere from 8 to 12%, probably, generally speaking. It depends on. There's some variations there depending on number of units and things like that, but we see that a lot out there, and people don't like it when they see a property information and they've left out property management. Just keep that in mind.
Okay, so another thing we want to chat about is verifying the income. There's a lot of different. Well, property can have different types of income. Rental property, it's the rental income, but then, commercial property, there can be different flows of income with it. And so verifying the income and also the quality of the income is very important. You got leases, right, in a commercial property, right, Bob?
You've got leases. You want to compile, and you'd like to see on any income property, of course, if the more units, I'm talking 10 or more units, let's say, you want to see rent rolls, you want to see the actual tenant files, and then, as Fred previously pointed out, you really want to verify those lease statements with estoppels, where you're going to collect that information straight from the tenant. So you just want to make sure that you're conducting that level of due diligence just to verify the income, because the income goes back to the valuation of the property, and that's the most critical component.
So you spoke to the value of the leases, sort of, didn't you say that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the value of the leases. So if we move into a larger sort of commercial sort of setting, there's a thing called, a term we use in the business called like a credit tenant. So the value of a lease is created through what's behind it, the business and the person that's signed for it. And a credit tenant, or big, things like Jack in the Box and McDonald's and things like that, Starbucks, those would be considered a credit tenant. They're traded on the stock market, you know what I mean, and they've got big dollars behind them. But there are other kinds of leases that also have sort of credit behind them, you might say, but it's a credit that you sort of need to look at on a more local level, in a more local way, and that's through drilling down into the people who've signed to be responsible for those leases, and then what the business is behind them that generates the income to pay those leases. So that's another.
One other point I want to make in that is you want to look at the term of those leases too, because if you're, let's say, dealing with 10 commercial clients in your commercial building, and are 7 of them going to come due within the next 3 years or the next 2 years on a short-term basis. So you want to look at the term of those leases, aside from any rent increases, that
Bumps,
sort
yeah.
of thing.
That's right. There's value in the lengths of those leases. There's value in that.
And then future value with the bumps, with
Right.
the increases down the road. So,
Right.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Also, existing loan documents. Now, sometimes that comes into play where usually that's going to be, what, like if you're assuming a loan,
If you're
right, Bob?
assuming a loan, right, and it's, in many cases that wouldn't apply, but you certainly want to scrutinize that if you are a buyer that has to, or you're intending to assume an existing loan. You want to make sure that you absolutely understand every part of that document.
Yeah, yep. It's just like applying for the loan yourself, sort of all over again. And most of the time, there will be a process that's fairly involved with doing that.
So getting back to the leases, so it's critical to review every lease and read every word because, some of these leases, you want to make a note of any discrepancies. There might be concessions in there or required improvements, and if the improvement or concession has not been met, you inherit that obligation to meet those changes in those leases, right? Isn't that right, Bob?
That's correct, yeah. You want to scrutinize those very carefully.
You mean anything that the owner was supposed to have done for the tenant prior to or during occupancy is what you're talking about?
Yes.
And then they didn't maybe perform, and then you buy it and you have to perform if they...
That's right, because those leases, just like any lease, they have to be honored. Once a new owner takes control of the property, he has to honor those leases if they're 5 or 10 year leases, and whatever it says in the lease, they've signed on to honor those.
There's no adjusting those terms or conditions. You're stuck with whatever they are for the length they are, yeah.
That's right, that's right.
Yep.
And then lastly, tenant files can reveal the most critical information, so examining those tenant files and, have they been good payers? Have they, if there's been any problems
So
with
that would be a rent roll, equivalent of a rent roll, I think, right?
Yeah, well, well, it's kind of two different things. The rent roll is going to be the rents and what you get for each unit.
The rent roll would
tenant-
basically be a spreadsheet compilation, but the actual tenant files would be a file that is specific to that particular
That's
tenant.
right. That's right.
For payment history. That
Yeah,
sort of
Like
thing,
he cussed me out last week.
Right, exactly.
Or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a tenant file. It's like,
I got a file on you, buddy.
That's right. We got a file on you. We're going to add to it. Anyhow, so we're getting down close to the end of the show again. This is Myer Realty's Commercial Corner, and we appreciate you listening every week. We're here Wednesday.
And give us a call if you need any help, 775-745-2918. We'd be happy to help you out with whatever you have.
Thank you.
Unexpected reactions